Hello friends, Tommy Pruczynski here. In this video I'm going to talk about 11 tips for less aches and pains in 2020 and beyond. Now before I get into the meat, it's the beginning of the year, new year, 2020, yeah. So a lot of people are making goals, New Year's resolutions, and I want to make one quick little question that might provoke some thought. So most of us want to live balanced lives. We want to, we have career goals, financial goals, health goals, relationship goals. We have a bunch of different goals. So my question is, in the pursuit of your goals, how does it change you? So a lot of us are so focused on our goals that we don't pay attention to how we're changing the process, both on a physical level. If we have a gym goal, are we doing damage to ourselves in pursuit of that goal? So in the pursuit of our goal, are we becoming a more capable, stronger person that we're better able to achieve all our other goals, or is it diminishing our power physically, mentally, emotionally? So that's just something to chew on as you pursue your goals this year. But let's get into this topic. So 11 tips for less aches and pains in 2020 and beyond. A lot of us have experienced a lot of neck pain, back pain, especially people that are working on their computers in a lot of compromised positions. So I'm going to talk about 11 things that we can do to have less aches and pains. So number one, move more. Pretty simple. The average American spends 11 hours a day in front of a screen. And I've lived abroad for the past 3 years. I can tell you people in other countries do too. We're spending a lot of times on our computers, on our phone, and we're a lot less mobile today than we used to be because we don't have to. We can do all the things that we need to do to survive without moving around a lot. So if you want to experience less aches and pains this year, move more. If you're working on your computer, take some breaks, walk around, switch from spend some time sitting, spend some time standing, walk around, take a leisurely stroll in the morning or the afternoon. Just move more. That's gonna get your you get your body moving. Things will be firing up better, and just overall you'll feel better. So number one, just move more. And I have a quick little story about this. My father, who is 68 years old, ever since he's retired a few years ago, he's very immobile. He doesn't move a lot, and when he gets up out of the chair, it's all very, very tense. Versus our neighbor, the neighbor next door, who's in his 90s, he's out every day in the yard, working in the yard. He moves pretty well. So, think about that. If, for the last, however many decades of your life, if you're 25 like me, hopefully you have, 6, 7, 8 decades to go. So the question is, from now until then, how are you going to be moving? And realize that the way you're moving is going to affect how you age. I believe that I believe that your quality of movement is a big factor in your quality of life. If you're able to run and dance and jump around, your life is a lot more fulfilling in a physical sense. So if you move more, you keep the bones limber, and your life is you're going to be able to enjoy your life a lot more. So number one, move more. Number two is move slowly. Slow down. So the thing is, when we're in a hurry and we're moving fast, we tend to practice bad movement habits. So it's not only that you need to move more, but you need to move with higher quality. And by slowing down, you can you can bring to your awareness of movement habits that are harming you, versus if you slow down, you can practice more higher quality movements. So in a previous video, I talked about when I'm on my motorbike and I'm revving the gas, I tend to, when I flip my wrists, I tend to go like that. But when I slow down, I can realize that I can differentiate these two movements. So this movement and this movement, two different movements. This one doesn't help me accomplish my goals. It's just carrying around weight that I don't need to. So when I slow down and realize that I'm doing that, I can do that, take that weight off my back, take that weight off my shoulders, literally. So that's number 2, slower movement, which brings me to number 3, which is pay attention to your bodily sensations. Number 3. Pay attention to bodily sensations. So by slowing down, we can pay more attention to what's going on in our body. And like I said, when I'm going like this, like that, and I slow down, I can differentiate between this and that. And when you're able to differentiate these two movements, you're telling your nervous system that you don't have to do that. And by becoming aware of our bodily sensations, we can find the movement habits are automated reactions to stimulus that aren't serving us. And and once you're aware of that, then you can move in a new direction, a more constructive direction, a direction that doesn't deplete your resources, but that makes you a stronger, more capable person. So we have a lot of tension in our body, and when we're able to pay attention not only to the tension, but where it feels easier. When I'm making a movement and I feel, oh, that felt easier, then that's a more constructive movement. So by paying attention to what our body is telling us, in terms of tension and ease, we're able to develop habits of movement that are more constructive. So, number 4 is pay attention to the space around you. Pay attention to the space around you. So this is on top of paying attention to what's going on in your body. Pay attention to where your body is. Again, especially important. A lot of the things that I'm going to talk about are especially applicable for people that work on their computers, like I do. I'm spending a lot of time in front of my laptop, and when our field of awareness is just boom, face to laptop, what tends to happen is we gravitate towards that, and there are obviously mental drawbacks to this, because for instance, when there was a psychology study that showed when you're in a room with a high ceiling, you're better able to think creatively, you're better able to problem solve, because your physical environment affects your mental activity. So when I'm just focused here, on the one hand, my mental activity is limited, but also I get in bad movement habits. My head moves back like this. I arch my back or slouch. But by being aware of all of the space around us, so not only the space in front of you, but the space behind you, the space above you, the space below you, and the space to your sides, just by drawing attention to that space, your body kind of fills out that space. Your body, becomes wider and longer, which a lot of the aches and pains that we experience are just from this tightening and tensing and shortening of our spine and contracting, versus when we just pay attention to the space around us, our body tends to fill out that space. We're going to feel less aches and pains. So, number 5, rest. Chill out, man. Get some sleep. You need rest to recover. So if you're going to the gym, you need to take rest in order for your body to recover. So if you're building muscle, you need that rest to build that muscle, or else you're always just tearing down the muscle. You don't have that rest to build it back up. So you need to get some sleep, because sleep is essential to restore your mental and physical capacities. I think the recommended is 7 to 9 hours per day. But I recently got this Fitbit, and it shows me not only how long I'm sleeping, it shows me when I'm going to sleep, when I'm waking up, and it shows me the quality of my sleep. So again, not just the quantity, but also the quality of your sleep. So black out your rooms, make sure there's no sound going on. Get that deep sleep, get that REM sleep. That's going to really help you recover. And having that rest is essential, because again, a lot of the pain and tension that we experience is from an overactive nervous system. So when we get rest, our nervous system is able to relax, clear our body of toxins, and we're going to feel better. But rest is not just about sleep. It's also about taking breaks throughout the day when you're working. Some of I mentioned before the high ceiling and the relationship to creative thinking. Now, another thing that has been shown, and I've experienced myself, is when you're thinking on a problem that you can't solve, if you go and take a walk, or do something where your mind is not focused on that problem, that's a lot of times when these creative breakthroughs, when these creative discoveries come in. I know that Thomas Edison and Salvador Dali used to do this deliberately. They used to work on a problem for hours. Salvador's thinking of this painting that he's doing, or Thomas Edison is thinking about this invention, and they're thinking on this problem all day, and then they take a break. They would lay on a couch with a watch at the end of a chain, and as you're about to fall asleep, the chain drops, and that wakes you up, and your mind is kind of in this in between waking and dreaming state where you're thinking associatively. So everything that you've jammed into your head from the day of focused work your brain can draw connections with all the things you already know to come up with creative discoveries, breakthroughs. But when you're focused on the problem, you can't draw those connections to the other things that you already know. So it's harder to come up with breakthroughs. So by deliberately putting yourself in a diffuse mode of thinking, which is what neuroscientists call it, versus a focused mode of thinking, you're able to draw connections and integrate all that knowledge that you've jammed in your head with all the things you already know. And this is important for your body as well. If you're making discoveries about your body in terms of how to release tension and improve your movement, by taking breaks and getting your mind off that stuff and just walking around, you're going to integrate those discoveries, those insights, the knowledge you've already made, or the knowledge you've just jammed in your head with all the things you already know. So rest is super important. Another thing about rest is a practice called constructive rest in the Alexander technique, which is where I get a lot of the inspiration about body and tension release and that sort of stuff, quality of movement. Constructive rest is when you take a couple of books, depending, this would probably be good. You lay on your back on the ground with the books under your head and your knees up. So feet flat on the floor, knees up. And you just lay there, and you don't have to hold yourself up against gravity. When you're laying down like that, you're able to utilize gravity to release a lot of that tension, and you get a lot of feedback based on where you feel your body, where you feel the weight going into the floor. So a lot of times, for instance, I had a shoulder injury in high school and had to get surgery and a host of problems since, and that's why I'm kind of obsessed with this stuff, to undo the damage caused from that and the habits that I've created to compensate for my shoulder injury. So when I'm laying down with my knees up and the books under my head, I notice a lot of times that this shoulder doesn't, like, only the bottom corner of my shoulder blade will will touch the ground. The back top of the shoulder blade, which in a well functioning human, that's where the shoulder blade should hit. It doesn't do that because my chest is pulling forward, my lats are pulling down, and kind of this action is happening. So I can recognize that when I'm doing this constructive rest practice lying on my back. You also get a lot of feedback on your breathing. So what part of your ribs are touching and how much movement is happening as you breathe. Just a quick little thing. Your body's always moving, even when you're in a stationary position. There's movement going on in your body. Your ribs are expanding and contracting as you breathe, and blood is moving. A lot of different movements are happening. You're never standing still. So taking that rest is going to allow you to not only recover, but also get a lot of insights, both to problems that you're trying to solve and within your body. So we're almost halfway through. Number 6. Learn basics of human anatomy. My handwriting is awful, so I apologize for that. But number 6, learn the basics of human anatomy. You don't got to be a anatomist or a physician. I'm not an anatomist or a physician, but I have learned quite a bit. Again, I'm kind of obsessed with this stuff, and but learning a few basic things about how your skeleton and your musculoskeletal system and your nervous system is designed is going to help you move better, and again release those aches and pains that you so want to release because they suck. So a few basic things. Your spine is not straight. A lot of times we hear these cues, especially in the world of sports, to keep your back straight, and in a sense that's important. What they're meaning to tell you is to stabilize your spine, so that if you're doing a lift, if you're doing a back squat or a deadlift, you want to keep your spine stable. You want to keep the gentle curves in your spine. So your spine has 3 gentle curves. In the lumbar vertebrae, it would curve that way, and then the lumbar is the lower vertebrae, and then in your middle back, the thoracic vertebrae, it curves that way, and then your cervical vertebrae in your neck curve that way. So your spine is not straight. That's one thing, and understanding those curves is going to help you to understand better how to use yourself in anything that you're doing. Another thing is that a lot of people think that their head rests on their spine right here, a lot lower and back than it actually does. I got this little skeleton here to show you. So the top of your spine is a lot higher than most people kind of have it mapped out. It's more up and forward than most people think. It's kind of like behind your ears and nose, or between your ears and behind your nose. That's where your head rests on your spine. So when we move our head, a lot of us move it from here, and that puts a lot of that puts a lot of pressure on our cervical vertebrae, which goes down into the rest of the vertebrae. So knowing where your head rests on your spine is going to allow you to move it easier, and again, experience less neck pain. And your body works as a unit. So if you're damaging your body at one point, the rest of your body is going to try to compensate for that. So it's going to develop patterns of use that are going to not serve you well. So understanding how your body is designed is going to allow you to recognize where you might have habits that don't serve you well, to formulate new habits that do serve you well. One other quick thing you guys should know is your sit bones. If you're sitting on a chair and you put your hands under your butt cheeks, especially if you're on a hard chair, you'll be able to feel it. But there's these bony protrusions. Those are your sit bones, and sitting on those is going to help you balance and stack your spine in a easy way. So being aware of those sit bones, that goes to number 3 and number 4. Being aware of your bodily sensations and the space around you. So sitting on that chair, you can feel those sit bones, and it's kind of like your body's rocking chair, and you can play around with that. But sitting on those sit bones is going to help you stack your spine in a constructive manner. And your spine, the way it's built is the bottom vertebrae are larger, and they get smaller as they go up in general. So it's kind of like a building. It's constructed well. Now, a lot of us experience a lot of back pain. It's not because our body isn't designed well. It's just that we're not using our bodies effectively in the modern environment. There's a lot of talk about ergonomics, and that stuff's important. But even if you have like a totally ergonomic workplace, how you use your body is probably more important than how the workplace is set up. So if you have an ergonomic desk but you're sitting like that all the time, you're going to do damage to your body. So understanding how your body is designed and paying attention to your body and the space around you is going to help you organize yourself in a way that is going to prevent you from developing more aches and pains in your body. So, number 6, basic human anatomy. Number 7, develop a sense of agency. That means that you can change. That accepting the fact that your body isn't perfect, but that you have all the capacities within you to change your body, to improve it in a way that is going to help you do the things that you want to do more easily, without further damaging your body, and you can actually change it for the better. So I think I don't want to go off on a big tangent here, but I think kind of the dominant health model that we're brought up in is that we're the patient, and we're kind of at the mercy of diseases or the doctors and the medicine, that we don't have an active role in our health, but we really do. And when I was 17, I had shoulder surgery, and every time I went in to see the doctor, he's just throwing drugs at me, drugs, and they don't really focus on the behavioral things that you can do to manage your ailments or to prevent those ailments in the first place. So by understanding that you have control over your body to a large extent, or that you have the ability to gain more control over your body to reduce these aches and pains, and you don't gotta obviously there's a place for pain-killing medicines and opiates, but a lot of times when you take painkillers and opiates and muscle relaxers, that your body builds up a tolerance to it, and you don't build that awareness of what's going on in your body to make those changes internally. neuroscience has found out that our brains and our bodies are changing all the time, and a lot of the pain that we experience is neurological. It's not just, so for instance, when I had shoulder surgery, I had pain from the surgery and from the injury, but over time I developed pain even after, years after. I developed pains in my neck and my back, and throughout, and that's a result of kind of two things. One is the compensations that my body performs to compensate for the shoulder injury. So that's like tightening here and tightening in my chest and my lats and my bicep to make up for the instability in my shoulder. But also your nervous system has a pain map, and pain is there for a reason. It's there to alert your body to potential further damage, and it sends you pain to tell you, hey, something bad might happen. Be careful. For instance, when my shoulder, I've popped out my shoulder 4 times. And when your shoulder pops out, it's incredibly painful because your body's telling you, hey, something bad's happening, change it. And when you pop it back in, it is, I don't want to say pleasure, but like it's such a relief. You're going from like a -6 to like a -1. So it feels really good. Anyways, your nervous system has a pain map. And when you have an acute pain, so with that instance, when my shoulder's out, that pain is kind of good pain because it's telling me, hey, something's bad's happening, and that allows me to me and the doctor to change it, so to fix it, so that my future will be better, and that further damage isn't going to be caused. But chronic pain, where the pain isn't necessarily alerting us to a problem, but the pain is the problem itself. That over time, our nervous system becomes way too sensitive, and it is kind of firing false alarms. So a lot of times when we're feeling, these aches and pains, kind of from like the modern life of, staring at screens, that's not. On the one hand, it might be telling us, hey, organize yourself more effectively, but a lot of times it's just from false alarms that we've become so sensitive to these pains that our pain maps are kind of have gone haywire. And there's a doctor called Michael Moskowitz, Dr. Michael Moskowitz, who has who's done a lot of research and clinical discoveries in this pain mapping and how to relieve chronic pain. I think this leads me into my next bit. But number 7, you have a sense of agency. You can change yourself for the better. You can change your brain. You can change your body. Number 8 is visualization. So I was talking about Dr. Michael Moskowitz, who had suffered an injury and developed chronic pain years after, and he's a pain doctor, so he studies pain, and he realized that part of your brain that processes pain also processes visual information, and there's kind of like a fight for real estate going on in your brain between these two different functions. So if the function that maps pain is going for the same real estate as the function that is mapping or processing visual information, that if you can if the visual information, if you focus on visualizing, that part of the brain isn't able to process pain. And especially for the chronic pain that is false alarms, that is not giving us useful information, it's the problem itself. When you're able to use that part of the brain to focus on visualization, that part of the brain can't process pain, so you don't feel pain. You don't experience pain, that type of pain. So he did a very specific type of visualization where he takes an image of the brain experiencing chronic pain, where it's just light, like there's a bunch of light shown for the pain, and then an image of the brain that is experiencing less chronic pain, and then an image of the brain experiencing no chronic pain. So by visualizing the going from the image of the brain with a lot of pain to an image of the brain with no pain, he was able to get rid of his chronic pain, and he was able to help his patients do the same. So if I think we can do the same things with our aches and pains from the modern life. That if we flood that part of the brain with visualization, that we're able to turn off that part of the brain that is prevent it from making us experience pain. So visualization is key, and there's another very interesting visualization technique that I got from the Alexander technique, and this is called posture release imagery. And essentially, it is a series of images that, if you focus on and really map out in your mind, that it can help you release a lot of that postural tension, and inhabit more space, and feel better in your body. So when I initially heard about posture release imagery in a podcast, and before doing further research, the first thing I heard about is just visualize yourself as a leopard on the savannah. And at the time, I was experiencing a lot of neck and back pain, and when I was listening to this podcast and just imagining myself, I mean, it sounds really cool, but it seriously was helpful by imagining myself as a leopard in the savannah, prowling and always at any moment ready to attack my prey. I just felt a lot less tension and pain in my neck and back and shoulders, and I just felt at ease more, and more capable in my body. And there's another technique that I learned through posture release imagery, is essentially when you're laying on your back with that constructive rest that I talked about before, and imagine yourself as an alligator or a crocodile. So when you do this, you imagine that your snout, because you're an alligator, goes far above your head when you're laying down, and that your tail goes far past your feet, and then your arms go out, and your legs go out, and your body gets from the snout, it gets wider and wider and wider until you get a little below the hips, and then that's at its widest, and then it gets shorter, and then it extends and gets more narrow as you go out to your tail. I'll show you guys some resources about doing this, and I might make a video on this specifically, but yeah, so basically using visual cues, using visualization to affect your nervous system and get rid of that, reduce the pain processing, that especially the chronic pain, the non-useful pain. To use visualization to reduce the non-useful pain is incredibly effective. Okay, so number 9. Constructive thinking. Kind of similar to visualization, but we can use our thinking and our mind to make changes in our body. One way we might think about this is when we're feeling pain, a lot of times we're like, we're focused on that pain, and you're like, what's, you're thinking things like, my body's broke, or, I'll never be able to release this. Whereas if you, instead of focusing on that, if you think like, okay, well, I have tension here in my shoulder, where does it feel a little easier, And you ask yourself that, and ask it in a very inquisitive, curious way, and pay attention to the changes that are happening in your body when you ask it, because every time we have a thought, there's an associated change in our body. That our body and mind are not separate; they exist together, and when we have thoughts, it changes our body, however so subtly. But when we have a thought, or when we use this deliberately to affect change in our body, we can think, okay, tension here, where does it seem a little easier? Okay, it seems a little easier in my stomach. And just by asking that question, where does it seem a little easier, we can start to notice the ease more, and a lot of times that can kind of flood out the tension and the pain. So number 9 is to think constructively. And another thing, especially in like self-help type communities, there's a thing called affirmations, where if you want to achieve a goal, just tell or if you have a job interview, and if you tell yourself, oh, I'm the best, I'm going to do great, this and that. A lot of people think that actually works, but I don't think it does. I think it's a load of horseshit. It's kind of it's lying to yourself pretty much. And there's a place for fake it till you make it, but I think a more constructive way, and I got this from a book called "To Sell is Human" by Dan Pink. Dan Pink is a great author. He writes about business and psychology stuff. But basically, instead of making affirmations, use interrogations. So instead of saying, "Ooh, I'm gonna ace this interview," just think, "Okay, how can I ace this interview?" Right? And then it gets your mind working, kind of even without your awareness, to come up with solutions to your problems. So if you're thinking, instead of telling yourself, "Okay, the pain is gone, the pain is gone, the pain is gone," just think, "Okay, where does it feel a little easier?" And then focusing on that ease can kind of, as you become more aware of where the ease is, you can actually bring more ease into your body. So, number 9, constructive thinking. Number 10. Hugs and smiles. Hug your loved ones, smile at strangers, smile at your loved ones, and hey, hug strangers. Who cares? I don't know. We are social beings. We're mammals, and we need human contact. And just the contact of humans, of other humans. A hug, a light touch on the shoulder. It releases oxytocin, which makes us feel good. And if we're not getting a lot of human contact, we're gonna feel more pain. We're gonna feel worse in our bodies. So by having that human interaction, showing that love, it's going to spike your emotions. Your nervous system your body's gonna release hormones that make you feel good, and you're gonna experience less pain. Now, number 11. Community. So being a part of a community who has a similar goal of experiencing less pain and tension in their body and moving with more ease and grace, having a like-minded community that is going after the same goals is going to help you achieve your goals quicker. Why? Because when none of us are perfect, and let's say we have a daily practice of I have a daily practice of focusing. It's called The Cycle. I learned it from a teacher, and I go through this process of asking myself, where do I feel ease in my body? And then also, when I ask that question, what experience happens in my body? And as I move, so I ask myself, where do I feel ease in my body? Okay. I noticed that, in my solar plexus, it seemed to get a little easier when I asked that question. Now, when I move, what happens to that experience? So if I raise my hands, does it get easier or does it get more tense? And okay. And then I keep doing that, and I find that it gets easier. So having that community, or I'm talking about my practice. So if one day I slack off and I don't do that practice, I can have a community that keeps me accountable. That I'm going to be more likely to stick through with it. We can crowdsource resources and insights, discoveries. We can learn from other people's failures and successes, and it's just nice to be part of a group that is going after the same things and cares about the same things, shares similar values. So I'm a part of communities about this sort of stuff, and I have if this stuff is interesting to you, and if you got value out of this, I have a special offer. So I am actually working on an online course about posture and movement, how to move with more ease, and how to experience less pain and tension. And it's especially focused on people that work on their computers. So, and if this is interesting to you, I have a special offer. I want to hear what you would want to see in that course, what you want included in the course. And I have a 1-question survey to basically ask you that, what's the number one problem that you face with pain and tension and posture and movement. And I want to hear from you, get your feedback on what you want to see in that course. And the first 50 people that answer that survey are going to get free access to the course when I launch. So so that's pretty exciting. I think I would love to hear your feedback if you're interested in this stuff. So that's it. Those are the 11 tips for less aches and pains in 2020. So let's get moving. Let's move smoothly. Pay attention to what's going on. Get that rest. Learn about how our body's designed, and understand that the latest research, the latest findings in neuroscience show us that we do have a lot of control over our body and minds, and we can affect change in our bodies and minds. And there's a lot of ways we can do that through visualization, through movement itself, becoming aware, getting better at our thinking, and let's love each other, and let's be a part of a community to keep each other accountable towards our goals. So that's that. Happy New Year's.